Hi, this is Suhaila, and this is Grow With Me by Suhaila, the podcast. This is episode 18. I don't know what I'm going to call this episode yet, but for now, I'm going to call it Shedding the Old, Purpose, Pressure, and the Year of the Snake. So that last part, the Year of the Snake, that just came to me because I realized that it is the Year of the Snake. If you follow Chinese New Year, Chinese astrology, I believe it is the Year of the Snake. But that idea, the metaphor of the snake, came because I was with a friend last weekend. We got together. We had a beautiful morning together, walking in the rain, going to the farmer's market, talking, and we were just talking about where we're now standing. You know, she's doing more international work. I'm doing more global work. And we started talking about how we're standing fully in our purpose and our passion. Clearly, our vision is pulling us. We know what we're here for. We know where we want to have impact. We know where we are having impact. And as we stand in new spaces and lean into that, how your world sort of just looks different, right? You're not standing with who you thought you would be standing with. You have to let go of a lot. And it's not even so earlier in my journey, a lot of it's all very intentional, but it was me really trying to get to the bottom of things, like consciously making decisions like, this is not good for me. That's not good for me. This person, this environment, this client, this job. But you get to a point where the vision is pulling you. So it just becomes a part of your natural evolution that these other things, these other layers, this other part of you, the things that you do not need anymore, they shed naturally like a snake. But the most insightful thing, first of all, I didn't know my friend, I've known her almost 10 years, 8 years now. I didn't know she had a love of snakes, that she had snakes as pets, as a child, as an adult. She loves snakes. She knows all about snakes. I was just like, what is this conversation? Because we normally talk about the butterfly, right? That metamorphosis of the caterpillar becoming a butterfly. So I'd never heard of this. I mean, obviously I know snakes shed their skin, but it was beautiful. But what she said was that there's a moment when they cry. She said, have you ever heard a snake cry? You know what they say? I'm like, no, I've never heard a snake anything. I don't go near snakes. but it was a funny conversation, but it was beautiful. But it was so insightful. And she just said they cry. So even though it's a natural biological process, that they don't have to do anything. It just happens, that shedding. She said they cry. And she was also telling me that obviously, I mean, it's logical, but I had never thought of it. The bigger the snake is, the larger that shedding is. The skin that they have to shed, the larger it is. So I guess we can correlate that the more painful it probably is. So, but we were talking about this moment of just within all this beauty of what we're doing and where we're standing and what we're feeling, there's also discomfort and there's pressure, meaning internal pressure, not external. Meaning you can feel the friction of who you're becoming and what you're having to let go of, even as you're fully feeling in full alignment, high frequency, high vibration, and loving every moment of what you're doing. So that part about the snake was inspired by that conversation with my girlfriend. And yeah, so that's what this episode is based on. And of course, in true to form, I did research and I, really wanted to understand what that process was. So that's what you'll find in this episode. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. I was with a friend last weekend, and we met up. It was impromptu. It was like, we were trying to get together earlier that morning and trying to figure out what to do, if it was going to be that morning or later in the day or later in the week. But then it wound up just being, meet me here in 20 minutes. And we met up, and we took a walk. We had a lovely morning. We went to the farmer's market here in Los Angeles. We walked in the rain. It's been raining here, which is unusual for Los Angeles. It doesn't rain a lot. So we took a walk, and we both started talking about, I don't know, it was such a interesting moment. I haven't seen her in a while. And the moment we hugged, I started crying. I don't know why. It was like a release. I don't know if it was just seeing a sister. She's not my actual sister, but I'm just saying someone who on a spirit level, I don't know. I don't know why I cried, but it was like this deep, we hugged and held each other on the corner. So she held me, I should say, so deeply and just so I don't want to say motherly because we're peers, but I don't know what that was, but I just started to cry. I don't know if I needed it. I don't know if I had been holding it in. I was having a little bit of a rough week. I had an ear infection. I was irritated. It was just a few things going on, but I wasn't expecting that. But anyway, so we walked and we talked, and it started raining in Los Angeles, and she had already been walking in the rain earlier. And I'm a New Yorker. I didn't mind it because LA rain is nothing like New York. It's just drizzly compared to New York. So we walked and we talked, and we were talking about where we both were in life. And so I have been on a conscious healing and transformation journey for a lot of years now, even if I didn't use the words, because I didn't always use that. For the purposes of my podcast, my newsletter, the things that I'm trying to articulate and explain to other people lately, I might use these words, but in my own world, I don't usually sit around saying, I have to do this healing, or I have to address this trauma. It's not at all how it's come about. I'm just like, I don't like this. What is this? How do I get to the bottom of this, right? So there's a phrase that I always say, this quote. Anyone listening to this who has read or listened to anything else I have done, other podcast episodes, I've probably said it before, and maybe you're sick of it, but it sums up my entire life experience. And it is, you are pushed by pain until you are pulled by vision. And I discovered it, I guess, a few years ago, when I honestly was pulled by vision. So anytime prior to that, even had I heard that phrase, I wouldn't have known what it meant, because I wouldn't have had the felt embodied experience of what it means to be pulled by vision, right? I would have thought it meant, for me, just lists like a goals, like New Year's resolutions or your 5-year plan or your 5-year goal. No, that's not for me what it meant. By the time I came across this, I knew entirely what it meant. I knew that I was pulled towards a vision that I could not even articulate, right? I just know it's like a feeling. I know I'm being pulled, and it feels exciting. It feels thrilling. And I knew I was standing in my purpose, even if I didn't know how it was going to unfold. I can't explain it. So by the time I came across this, it was like, oh my God, because you can feel the difference. The push by pain is literal. So I knew I was in a phase where, even though I was still changing, it wasn't causing painful things. It was mostly not painful things that were calling me or pushing me. It was something else that was pulling me, and I could tell the difference because it was not painful. Meaning, I'm not saying that there weren't parts of my life that I still was addressing that weren't painful, but that I understood it because the feeling inside is so different. It doesn't come from a frustration. It doesn't come from, well, there could be frustration there sometimes, but that's more in the process and timing of things, but not in the vision, not in, I'm not clear, or it's a hard thing to explain. But by the time I came across that, I understood exactly what it meant. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I know this sooner? Because maybe I wouldn't have struggled against the past so long if I knew that this was waiting for me in the future. Of course, hindsight is always 20/20, but that was my thinking. In reality, even had I come across it sooner, I would not have understood it. And I would have been like, yeah, sure. Where's this vision that's going to pull me out of this pain? Right? Or where's this transition where I'm no longer pushed by pain, but I'm pulled by vision? I probably wouldn't have even believed it until I saw it anyway, or felt it. But anyway, so that quote is one of my favorite quotes, because if I say nothing else, it describes my entire life for me. So her and I were talking about this transitions we are in. And like I said, for the past few years, I have been consciously on a journey where I have usually pushed by my pain from early on to make changes. But it's making changes that you just know, I don't like this anymore. This suffering, this feeling of just, I don't want this. I don't like this, whether it's people, whether it's places, whether it's jobs, whether it's things, whether it's parts of myself. Now, inside, that's a little harder, right? It's easy to run away from people when you a trigger and you don't really know how to address it in a healthier way, but you can do it only in the healthiest way that you're capable of doing it in that time, in that moment of time, the safest way. And sometimes that is running away from things like, I don't want this, you just like, get out of here. I don't want this. I don't want this. You just do not like where you are anymore, right? So that's the push by pain. And I was doing that for a long time. So I would call that unconscious, meaning the pain part was conscious, but the reason I was making decisions and how I was making decisions was all over the place. But it doesn't really matter because I believe all paths lead to home, right? As long as you're not destructive, destroying yourself and destroying other people. Although you do have to break, you got to let it go. So on some level, you are destroying yourself. You are letting go of this older part of yourself, right? But you might be doing it unconscious in all these ways that look a little chaotic for a while. So for me, that was very much the early part of most of my life. Until the last few years, it's been conscious for a lot of years. When I say it became more conscious, so meaning I was doing it intentionally. I was seeking the places, the healers, the things, the books, whatever, the meditations that could help me through these transitions. So it's always been conscious on some level, but it was still very painful. Where now that's not really the case. It might be frustration for different things, like timing of things when I know a change needs to happen, or the process, but not where I'm standing, meaning the vision is pulling me so clearly that it just feels like absolute synchronicity and absolute flow, meaning I'm so clear that I'm going somewhere, even if I don't always know where it is. Like, I can't explain it. It's such a feeling of just floating down I can't explain it. So that phrase, though, completely resonated with me for a long time. So my friend and I, we were talking about this place we both are, which is that pulled by vision phase. And we were just talking about how it's so odd because even though we intentionally, like I said, have let go of things, have let go of people, have let go of situation, have whatever we needed to do to get to where we stand now, it's still very uncomfortable in this very strange way. When you're pulled by vision, it's uncomfortable in a way that I can't describe. I can't describe. For me, you look around and the people who you thought would be standing with you are not. You just, I don't know, it's this weird isolation. It's this weird, I don't know what it is. And for me, for the past couple of years, I've been deep in creative work. Now, I've always been a creator. I'm a marketer. I do brand work. So I always am used to seeing vision on paper, quote unquote, and bringing it to life, right? For big brands, for small brands, for clients. That process, the creation process, I'm used to. But in the past couple years, it's been my own work, right? So I have a book, I have 2 courses, I have a podcast, I have a newsletter. It's been my own work out there. So I am a creator in a whole different kind of way, in a very literal way. And the trajectory of my business and the way I'm building it is also there. It's not going to stop, right? That's what I'm doing. And I'm working on a second book right now. And it's just a different place to be in as a creator, but that vision just pulls you. You don't always know what's happening. As someone described what is happening to me, a healer said this to me. She was like, it's it's a path that has not been paved yet, right? So as I take the step, the stone appears beneath me, right? Is what she said. She was like, you are at a place where there's no blueprint, right? There's no blueprint for this. Nothing has come before. So you just have to trust. You have to trust that Spirit is asking you to trust that when you take that step, you got to take the step first. And then the stone, like a path, will appear beneath you. And I was like, oh, it reminds me of a Martin Luther King quote. There's a quote that says, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step, which is similar. But she was saying the step is not even there. It's my action makes the step appear. Right. And then I said, oh, it's kind of like that other quote. I'm a big quote person. And it says, leap and the net will appear. Leap and the net will appear. So it was similar to that. So my friend and I were talking about how we're at this new space and we are just in uncharted territory. We are similar in that she's doing international work, specifically between here, United States, and Africa, parts of Africa. I'm doing global work, meaning all of my work is meant for the entire world. No matter where you are, you can access it. And it's the same meaning for everyone, the same intention for everybody. It doesn't change based on the region of the world. Like this podcast, no matter where you listen to it, there's no other interpretation of what I'm saying here, right? It's meant for everybody. So we're both in this space where our work is like becoming really expansive. Our visions, she's literally back and forth to Africa on a regular basis. It's astounding how often she goes. And I am more, my vision is there. My work is more digital, like my courses, my podcast, so anyone can access it from anywhere in the world. Like even on this podcast, I looked at the stats the other day and I could see that my audience for this podcast is in Brazil, the Bahamas, Russia. I was surprised to see Chile, Paraguay, United Kingdom, in India, Dominican Republic, the United States. So I can see who's looking at it. So I'm not necessarily targeting. I don't say, hey, Spotify, put this out to these regions. It just reaches who it's supposed to reach. So we are both stepping into this work where we are literally in our pulled vibe vision phase. We are in that phase, and we were talking about how odd it is. And so when I had hugged her earlier and cried, I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. I wasn't expecting that. And then we started talking later about what we're both doing and up to. We haven't spoken maybe in a month or so, but we haven't had a deep conversation like this in a couple years where we really sat down or just walked and talked for like an hour or more, right? And so she said to me, she said, so you know snakes, right? She said, you know snakes. I'm like, she said, I used to always, I love snakes, she said. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And she's like, and I used to always have them as pets growing up and even as an adult. No, I never knew that. I actually don't know a single person who has had snakes up close. And she said, well, I do. And so she was telling me the different kinds. I think one might, and I don't know if I'm getting this right, it might have been like a boa, a red boa. She was just telling me the different kinds. And I was just like so fascinated because I know this woman. She's in television and film and production. And I never would have thought that she knows snakes or had snakes or loves snakes or had them as pets. So she was like, when they grow, she said, what we're talking about reminds me of when they grow. She said, so the longer they get, the bigger they get, the longer the skin that they shed is, right? The longer the skin that they have to shed off of them is, right? And I was like, oh, yes, snakes do. I'm aware that snakes shed their skin, but I never thought about it too deeply. But she was like, and it comes out off as a whole piece. When it comes out, she was like, so if it's a baby snake, it'll be shorter. If it's as they grow, it'll be longer. That skin just grows, right? It's as long as their growth when it comes off. And then she said, but there's a moment where they cry. And she's like, have you ever heard a snake cry? I'm like, no, I've never heard a snake cry. I've never heard of anything you're saying right now. And she said, there's a moment when the skin comes off that it cries. It's painful. So even though they're growing and they're changing and they're now this new thing, it's painful. And I was like, what? I was like, you can hear the snake? She said, yeah, you can hear it. Like it has an audible sound. And I said, well, does it cry that entire time? I said, this is so interesting because normally we talk about the caterpillar to butterfly metamorphosis. And I'm familiar with that one, how the caterpillar literally has to die. It becomes soup. It becomes soup in its own self before it emerges as a butterfly, a soup, not soup that you can eat, but I'm just saying it literally has to die. But so I was like, we often hear the caterpillar to butterfly metaphor, but I've never heard anybody talk about the snake because also snakes seem so tough and like mean or, depending on, I have spiritual views about snakes as well that are just not that. They're not mean or scary, but most people, when they're thinking of snakes, they think of a venomous, scary, dangerous thing. Something with a lot of power, obviously, and a lot of strength. So that level of vulnerability, when she said they cry, and I was like, what do you mean? She was like, yeah, she said it makes an audible sound. And I said, well, does it make a sound the entire time that the skin is coming off? Because I didn't know even how long that process takes. I actually still don't know. Like, does it happen in a day? In a month? But she said, no, the moment at that moment when it's coming off it cries. She said, because they're in pain. She said, so even change and transformation, when you're becoming this beautiful, what emerges with the snake is this beautiful, what we know as snake skin, right? Shiny and new. But she said it cried because it was painful. And I was like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I never even heard this, so true to form, I went and researched it a bit. And I believe it's pronounced ectasis. Ectasis. I think I'm saying it right. And it's actually what happens when the snake sheds its skin. The shedding is called ectasis. ECDYSIS. So it's not that the skin is growing, it's that the snake is growing. So as the snake grows, that outer layer that becomes the skin that's left behind, I think we've all seen it, it becomes too tight. As it grows, the layer becomes too tight. It becomes dull. It becomes opaque and restrictive. It's uncomfortable. It's extremely uncomfortable for the snake because their outer skin doesn't expand. So they have to shed it periodically because they have literally outgrown their old self. So it gets uncomfortable. Their vision becomes cloudy, it said. So it makes them start to seek safe and solitary spaces. And they scrape against rough surfaces to help the old skin come off. I thought that was the most amazing thing I've ever heard. I'm like, what? So it's extremely intentional, right? And it's a natural act. It's not just growth. It's a natural act. It happens naturally. And they become sensitive to the touch. They become irritable. And the outer layer absolutely has to separate from the new layer. And it does that through moisture and friction and movement. So it's first the irritation. Then it's the tightness. Then they're foggy. Then it's a tearing away. And then there's clarity. So the old identity is not just released, that skin. It's physically outgrown. It's not about judging. It's not about, they're not trying to run from anything, right? It's not like this big emotional ceremony. It's evolution. It's evolution making space. It's simply evolution making space. And apparently that moment when they scream is a threshold. I researched that a bit because she said they cry. And I was just like, oh my God, I never thought, about, you think of snakes as these, these tough things. I was like, they cry. And, I'm sensitive. And that just made me feel like, wow. But so I researched it and it said the vocal sound that they made is really, it's an audible sound. It's a pressure point. It's a pressure point of self-liberation. It's the instant when their internal force meets external resistance. When the internal force meets external resistance. The new layer is already formed fully beneath the old one. The new layer was already there. It's formed fully beneath the old one. So the renewal was already present the entire time. So the shedding part is just unveiling what was already there. And I just thought this was just the perfect metaphor, analogy. I don't know what this is called. Allegory. I don't know what this is called, but I just thought it was the perfect thing to describe transformation because it is an active process of leaving behind what no longer serves us. It's about embracing that rawness. It's about feeling vulnerable. It's about feeling the discomfort and the friction of this new existence that we're stepping into. It's not uncertainty, because going back to that metaphor in the beginning, that's saying you're pulled by vision at this point, so you know where you're going. You have no doubt that this feels right, but you still got to embrace the rawness and that friction, and you step into a fresher and more resilient state. So it mirrors the process of the human journey, I think, of transformation, where even if you want to use that pushed by pain part that I said earlier, right? Even if you want to use that, it mirrors the journey in that hard experiences often precede personal growth. And then even in the moment me and my friend had last week, we are in this process of growth, but we are not standing at the finish line yet. That won't be until the end of our lives, whenever that is. But we are still in the process of these new changes, even though we're standing fully in our visions. And it's still, that can feel painful. So it's not painful for the same reasons as the past. When I talked about trauma and having to make choices and having to leave behind people or places or things or jobs, that's different. This is like, it's confusing because you feel like you're so aligned and you feel like you're standing in the exact place you're supposed to be. You're not even searching for anything. For sure, even if you don't know what that next step is, or you just know that you are being pulled, but it's still painful in this strange way. So I've read too that humans go through that same experience with our actual skin. And it's an outer layer of skin that we gradually shed millions of skin cells. It's also known as exfoliation. I think a lot of us might do that on purpose when we exfoliate in the shower, and has another name that I can't pronounce. But it's similar to that, to the snake shedding. But they shed their entire layer all at once. And so the human shedding of our actual physical skin and those layers of that cellular process, that happens where old cells are constantly being replaced by new ones. So old cells are replaced by new ones, the human process. So that's a cellular process. But the snake is one, it happens at one time, and I just thought that was just unbelievable, because it's so true. And I think that the part about them feeling the pain, even though, and screaming out at that moment, and the fact that they isolate, it's self-isolation. And it's first the irritation, then the tightness, then the fogginess, then the tearing away, and then the clarity. And the old identity is not released, it's physically outgrown. The new identity the new layer is already fully formed. It was already there beneath the old one. So it's the buildup of this internal expansion that creates inevitable rupture. The expansion, the rupture was a given. And then they literally get foggy, their vision. Apparently there's a blind period where they're just foggy. They're uncomfortable. They're vulnerable because they're foggy. They can't see clearly, I think physically. And that mirrors the human experience of inner clarity, even though we might be disoriented out on the outside. The human experience of inner clarity, we have inner clarity, even though there's outer disorientation. It's disorientating. Well, her and I, we're disoriented, me and her. It's disoriented. I don't know if we can, I don't want to add another metaphor, but like how a GPS has to find you might turn the corner and now it has to know where you are. It has to quickly do, it has to orientate itself again and orientate. It has to find itself again. It has to find its position again, right? When a GPS goes, when you took a turn that maybe the directions on your Waze or whatever you use, if you're driving and you're using driving instructions, it might have told you to go one way and then you went another way on your own because you were pulled by vision. And now the GPS or your instinct said go this way. So now your GPS has to recalibrate. It has to orient itself again. So that's sort of how we're feeling. It's so you have this blind period where you're going in the right direction, you're pulled by vision, but you're now in this new place and it's disorienting. So even though the inner clarity is clear, it still just feels like this outer disorientation, and that's how we feel. And then we have this final release that's so swift. It's so swift, like a timeline. Last episode, I talked about how we step into new timelines and how old timelines collapse. And I use a dream that I had to show that example. But it's the same thing. That final release of that snake's outer layer is so swift. It's almost like a timeline folding in on itself. The old layer is left behind, and the new snake does not look back. There's no mourning. There's no nostalgia. There's only emergence. So I thought that was a beautiful example of what transformation looks like. And even when it's the best of things, when you are being pulled by vision, how absolutely uncomfortable and even painful it can be. And I think when I saw my friend and I cried, not even knowing that we were sort of in the same place with where we are with our businesses and our lives and our purpose and our vision. But when I cried, when I held her, she held me. It was it's like I was holding on to her, but we hugged, but it felt like she was holding me. I don't know what her experience was of it, but I cried because it was the same feeling of that snake when it cries, when that outer layer of it, who it no longer was, is very clear. I'm not that anymore. I'm getting emotional because you feel it. I'm not that anymore. It was restrictive. It was holding me back. I didn't even have to do anything. I was just pulled by my natural evolution. God put me here. My natural evolution. I didn't do anything. It wasn't like in the past where I'm running away, trauma and all these things that you're learning to address. No, it was a natural evolution. It was built in. It's a biological reality. So it's not even, it's actual reality. It's not even really a metaphor. It actually happens for the snake. And I think it happens for us too. So I hope this is insightful for you. And if it is, I'd love to hear your comments. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you are interested in journeying with me a little bit further or a little bit longer, there are a few ways that you can do that. One of the ways is my leadership course. It is called Feminine Leadership, Leading from the Inside Out. It is a mini course. It is self-guided. It is soft. It is gentle. It is easy. You can do it anywhere. It's a PDF. You can download it. It is not the traditional leadership language mumbo jumbo. It's not heavy hitting. It's not heavy. It's not heady. And it's easy to download, and it's on Gumroad. So wherever you are listening to this podcast, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Podcasts, wherever you are, in every episode you will see an episode description. Beneath the description, down below, but before you get to my bio, which is all the way at the bottom, between those two areas, you will see a bunch of links. Amongst those links is the link for Feminine Leadership, Leading from the Inside Out. You can click there. It will take you to Gumroad, and you can download it. Right now, it's priced at $37. Quick and simple, easy, breezy. If you're interested, check it out. I also have a book, Awaken the Brand by Suhaila, Unleash Your Personal Potential Through Building Your Brand. I like to say this book is personal development meets brand development, powered by spiritual intelligence. So whether you have an actual business brand or just a personal brand that's also a business, or just a personal brand that's just you. I define a brand as a promise. So whatever that is for you, it does not have to be a business that is a business where you are generating money or trying to generate money. It's just about how we show up in the world through our businesses, through our brand. I'm really using brand as a path to higher consciousness. That's really what it is. I'm using business and brand as a path to higher consciousness. I use that word because it's something that everybody understands, but it really literally is also a business and brand book. So however you want to look at it, however you're approaching it, whether it's for yourself personal, whether it's for yourself because you actually have a personal brand like you're a public speaker, or whether you're a thought leader and you actually are building a personal brand, or that is your business, or whether you have an actual product service brand. It's for everybody. So you can also check that down below. I have another course. It's also called Awaken the Brand. It's what the book came from. The course came first. The book came second. So you can check that out below. That's on Teachable and Gumroad as well. And then I have a newsletter called Spark by Suhaila, and it is on Substack. Those are all of my offerings. If you're interested in any of them, you will find them below. Have a wonderful day. Sending you light and love.